Hi, I'm Pharaoh, and today I'm in an abandoned system, but it's not my abandoned run. I'm just going to spend some time looking at giant planets, just because they kind of intrigue me. I haven't looked at that many of them. I probably looked at about, I don't know, 15, 20 of them. And they can be quite surprising, and they can be very different. So I don't feel like I've got a feel for their variety yet. And I'm kind of got an idea for a video exploring what we understand about Light No Fire from what we're now seeing in No Man's Sky. And so I really want to kind of look at the terrain generation that has now come about with giant planets and get a closer look at what's available, what it actually shows us about what kind of things we might see, because theoretically they've actually turned this game, used the generation from Light No Fire for this game. So, I mean, it won't be exactly the same. The scale will be very different. But it's kind of interesting, especially on a planet like this, for instance, which I was just looking at yesterday, which looks like a standard mountainous planet, but technically isn't, because the scale is completely different. So I'm boosting here. I'm not going slowly. I'm boosting quite fast. And the landscape is not exactly flying past me. And if I land down here just to get a sense of scale on the ground, or rather get out here. Then the landscape is kind of quite normal around me, but with the large mountains all around me, and they are very, very large mountains. They go up above the clouds. So it's kind of like a standard mountainous planet. And kind of not. Yesterday I was actually climbing this slowly but surely, because I parked up there, dropped myself down, and then climbed back up again. And it did take a while to get back up again. The interesting thing about this planet, though, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 different types of flower fauna, flower cats, whatever you want to call them. Hi, Alphas, how you doing? Good to see you. Yeah, I mean, it didn't take forever, but it took its time, and I definitely wouldn't want to be doing it in anything other than a really mature save. So the other thing about these kinds of planets is, in theory, they have different bounds for what you'll find in different parts of the planet. So I'm kind of intrigued to climb these silly fiddly stairs. I'm kind of intrigued as to whether or not it will be mountainous everywhere, which is quite possible, or whether there'll be areas that are flatter. So I'm going to kind of land in a few different spots before I leave this system. Let's kind of go to the edge each time. You can already see by the way the ground is rippling that it's going to be mountainous. It does feel very different, though. I always feel in purple systems, if you're really familiar with the way that landscape generates in this game, then you really notice quite immediately that something's different. I mean, very occasionally I'll be in a non-purple system and I'll think, oh, is this a purple planet? And I'll look to see, and it isn't. But I have a feeling there are also, I haven't looked into this, I know some people have said this, that there are also some planets, or some systems rather, that are new, that follow the purple generation. And I know in the patch notes when they released Worlds Part 2, they did kind of mention different planets that they had introduced. So I think they might have introduced a few different systems. It's really weird the way that the generation works on these purple systems. You can watch the landscape kind of form in front of you rather than naturally occur. But again, it's because I'm going really, really fast here. I'm not. It feels like, I mean, I am in a Corvette, but Corvettes aren't that slow. This isn't a slow one. Let's jump in a fighter for a second just to get a feel. Again, look, I wasn't as low as it seemed either. Plays tricks on our sense of perspective. This is probably going a bit faster, but it's still taken a while to get to the landscape, as it were. Much more responsive, of course. But it feels much more open in these areas, almost as if you've taken a magnifying glass to a larger, to a normal rather, mountainous planet. Totally changed the scales. Of course, this is only one type of purple planet terrain. Let's try a few spots, see if it's all the same. It might be. Again, this is bigger than it feels if we go right down low. So much easier flying a fighter. Right, one more spot. It looks like it's going to be pretty much all the same. High mountains surrounding open areas. Yeah, oops, already looks like it, as you can see the way that the ground kind of forms on mountainous planets. Could be interesting to get a sense of what an ordinary mountainous planet looks like after flying around in this. Just to get a feeling for the different... Oops. Just scared. Wasn't looking where I was going then. Just to get a feeling for the difference. The only one I can think of that I know how to get to quickly is my base in the anomaly. Actually, that's a... that space station is further away than it might seem. Always feels so much faster coming in, because Corvettes come into the anomaly really slowly. Feels like a weird flex to go to my own base, but it's not why I'm doing it. But it's the first mountainous planet I can think of. Okay, so it's obviously not quite the same because it's a water planet. But you feel much more closed in here, even in the open areas. If this is a sea one, it probably has areas of just land. Let's have a look. No, it's a little bit small islandy. This planet always reminds me of certain Japanese art. It's a little bit better. You can see the areas lower down aren't that wide open. We're crossing them quicker. And we're feeling a bit more hemmed in on each side. Like used to flying a fighter. Flying a fighter. Feels so much more responsive. Hi, Wolfheart. So let's go from here, because if anybody wants to visit any of these planets I'm going to, then they've got a good starting point. They just go to this system. A lot of people seem to like that system. I guess this system has been in the anomaly for quite a long while now. People have got settlements and bases all around. But that's not going to be purple, is it? No. Oh, I don't even have the Atlantic driving this ship. Yeah. Right, purple systems. Just fly to one to start with, go to a normal planet. And then we'll start looking for giants. Have I coincidentally gone to another high terrain? It's high, but it's not mountainous. What about? Almost impossible to see here. It's very vivid. Not going to see much with the storm either. But you do see slightly different terrain features on these planets. You often see kind of longer rises, for instance. Or much more gentle rises and falls that go low and high. But you're not going to see it on every planet. This one looks relatively simple. Again, you can kind of just about see by eye that there's something slightly different about it if you're really familiar with normal systems. But we're not seeing much there because of the storm, so let's find some giants. I need to actually select and see if they've got planets. If it says gas giant, I'm going to ignore them because they're not the easiest planets to see on either. So what I'm looking for is just, so that's a gas giant, and that's kind of what I'm looking for without the gas giant symbol. So you can see there's a planet there and the number of moons around it, and I'm looking for the same but without the gas giant in the little notes just below the name and the region. That isn't one, that's just one with few planets. Come on, select that one. Doesn't want to select that one. It's like that one isn't there. The impossible to reach planet. Doesn't want to select that one either. Weird. I was going to say let's select that one and then manually go to it. Let's select that one and manually go to it. No, there's not even a line there. Odd. Not seen that before. Makes me want to go there now. Go to that one. Let's see if we can jump to them. Hi, Gravnaut. Have you seen this before? Not being able to jump to certain purple planets, or systems rather? I can go to that one. I can't select that one. Or that one. Or that one. Or that one. It's really odd. I might reload. Because I have come through the anomaly to the butterfly house base. So perhaps I just need to reload. Let's go here because I know I've got some planets. Like, oh, no, I can get to that one, but I can't. I don't think I'm at the galactic edge. Maybe I am. Maybe... I am, aren't I? Because look, nothing's here. So it's just a strange anomaly that the way that the voids come in. Yeah, I am at the galactic edge. That would explain it. So we'll go inwards while we're looking. So where's the core? Because it's strange that I could select systems all around them, but it's probably just a strange artifact of the way that they introduced the addresses for them. We go outwards. So I can go right out to here. That seems to be the edge. And if I look inwards, at least some of them seem just a bit difficult to see the colours in them. Yeah, no. I'm not going to reproduce it now, so maybe it was closer to the edge than I thought. All right, let's not worry about that. It's possibly just we didn't realise quite how close to the edge we were. Let's go inwards. Out of jump range. I shouldn't really be in a fighter, should I? Let's go back to where I was. Oh, I really was on the edge. So, see, that won't let me, even though it's closer in. That one won't let me. But then you do get those stray planet or systems that are just out a little bit further into the void. So it's not that unusual. But I can't see any other planets or systems. I keep saying planets. Can't see any other systems around me that I can select from where I am. Now I know where the edge is. So it's like a real stray. It's a real outlier, literally. It's interesting. See if anybody's... No, somebody has named it. That's the problems of being near a published base. So people will have already explored it, so we can't just name it outlier. Right. Should maybe swap ships, but I'll do that at the next stop. Okay, so that's a giant planet of some kind. And we're not far from the system I was on, which I think is that the Oxin? Can't remember which one. It's one of those. It's one of those two over there in front of me now, and possibly the one lower. So if you wanted to come here, you'd have to look towards the core, which I've lost now. Where's the core? There it is. And it would be on your right somewhere. Baverna Anpin. It's like the forgot what it's called now. The movie where he sails to the sky. Scaly giant. Hi Ignition, good to see you. I kind of like that element of No Man's Sky, that it all feels simulated. Not just... It doesn't try too hard to not be. I know some people get wound up by things like pop-in and... I mean, they probably get a bit wound up by this, because we're in a huge flattish terrain. We can see ungenerated terrain all around us. It's a long way away, and as we get towards it, it will slowly turn into terrain. But it's a problem with the scale of these planets. But obviously in Light No Fire, we'll be down lower. We won't be able to get that high. We won't be able to see the join. I notice more of these kinds of caves. It's difficult to say what I mean by these kinds of caves. But they're not. When I'm looking for caves on a normal planet, I don't look for shapes like that normally, but like on the side of a slight rise. But I certainly notice them more in purple systems, like these kinds of things. No, there's no news on Light No Fire. It's just that they mentioned Light No Fire in the most recent video about No Man's Sky when they released this patch Voyages. So it's kind of on our minds again. And we're kind of expecting at some point they're going to go back to one of the shows. That's a classic example of the kind of landscape you get on purple systems. Let's land here a second. So yeah, I would expect some news later this year, personally. I'm also interested because it's around about this time of year they released their financials. So I'm interested in that as well. I should really check to see if they've released their financials already, but I think they had a delay. I think they changed their schedule to slightly later. So it used to be October, but it might be January now, because they completely reorganized a couple of years ago. So yeah, so this kind of terrain here, can't really see it clearly, but everything's a rise from where I am, and it's on a very low, slow rise. So this is kind of further away than it might look. So if I do a bit of exploration on foot, it might give it a better perspective. And these are the kind of things I might expect from Light No Fire's terrain generation. So it's like more space between geographical features. So if we were in a particularly hilly area, then we might come across something a bit like this. And possibly something a bit like these, because these seem to be similar to some of the crab things we see in the trailer. I like the patterns on that one. It's almost like they might have been rejects from the game. I'm surprised you're still having to do the reload thing, Wolfhart. I mean, yeah, they do seem to have some pretty good maneuverability stats if you really min-max them. And it is annoying if you're having to change them. I know, theoretically, there's no stopping it. If you have to go in and tweak your actual build, then these are a bit weird, aren't they? If you have to go in and tweak your build, then it's going to have to potentially rearrange things if you kind of add or remove something that's apart. But I haven't seen it move things around if I haven't done that. But I have heard other people say that, so I don't know if there's certain conditions. You see here, we've got a very long rise up to this. So my ship was there. We're now higher than it. And although I wouldn't call this craggy landscape, the rise is different. It doesn't feel quite the same. Just because of the scale. So I wonder, when Sean talks about mountains that will take hours to climb, what kind of scale is he talking about? What kind of climb are we having to make? Because like you can see here, I'm having difficulty climbing. I can't just climb here. So will the thing that slows us down be the way we have to climb? Obviously here we can jetpack. And if it's too steep, we don't even have to pay for our jetpack. But this isn't really a steep mountain. Well, I mean, we know that Sean is not immune to a bit of hyperbole. See, now all of a sudden that starship, which looked like it was just tucked in a bit of terrain, now it looks like it's way down there somewhere, considering the horizon's up there. So it kind of gives you a false sense of perspective because you're not expecting the rise to be this big. Well, if you consider how long would it have taken me to get here without the jetpack, I wouldn't necessarily have been able to. I'd have to kind of picked my way around with a route that didn't involve anything too steep. Like anything that steep, I wouldn't be able to climb. So I'd have to walk around it. Let's try not using a jetpack for a while and see how we get on. It's definitely going to slow us down quite a lot. And probably rise up here. I mean, it's not going to take us hours, but it's going to take a while. And obviously this is nothing compared to the scale of an Earth-like planet. And if you imagine when we hit something like this, where we can't climb, if you imagine there was another animation where we're kind of painstakingly climbing, a bit like you do in something like Towers of Agaspa, which is an interesting game to climb with. It could take you a while. My finger's almost going to the jetpack just without thinking. But towers. Did I say tails? It's leveling out a bit now, but they're still higher. That's still much higher than where I am. I don't think we can expect Light No Fire to be an extreme survival game. So, I mean, just going by their attitude to gaming in general, they don't seem to have that mindset of making it superbly difficult. It'd be nice if there was more difficult mode, but I don't know if they're going to do that. I mean, their attitude appears to be very inclusive, to allow as many different types of players as possible to enjoy the game that they've created. And you can see why with this game, because this game is really, at its heart, about going to cool planets. I mean, it's at its heart, that's what I'm doing right now, is exploring a planet I've never looked at and finding a different way to explore it and see what it offers me as an exploration space. And I'm not doing anything else, really. I'm not engaging with any of the other game loops at the moment. This is a normal save. It's locked normal save. Every time I see one of those things, I slightly jump. Oh, see, like I did it. I couldn't resist just doing it because I'm so used to having that utility. We don't have that utility. It's going to feel a very different game. It's always hard now at this point to judge if you're at the high point locally or whether the next peak is higher. I think we're kind of it's not necessarily the absolute highest. That peak there looks slightly higher. There's no way of leveling the eye view, I don't think. I maybe go into camera view and then out. So assuming this is eye level. Yeah, that looks a lot higher. Let's keep going for a bit. It'll take me a while to get over there, though. If there's a ravine in the way, then we really are stuffed. They're noisy for things that aren't attacking me. Just trying to avoid the very, very steep parts. I mean, in that first planet I was on, the first large mountainous planet, if we had a rock climbing ability, it would be fascinating to climb up that steep side of the mountain. But without it, we couldn't. We just couldn't do it. And if something like towers, it has like a stamina. So if you're climbing, you can't just keep climbing without finding a rest spot. So you have to kind of work out your route as you're climbing. And some routes have been designed to be deliberately impossible because it's a crafted game, not a procedural game. So you will end up, presumably, unlike No Fire, with places that are really hard to climb. Whether they will take hours, I don't know, but they will definitely be really hard to climb. Let's do this again. You can tell we're on a gas giant just by those, or what? A giant, just by the way those clouds are. You can see the lines on the clouds. This is still higher, but it looks like it's in reach now. So this must have taken a good 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. Oh, I thought I just sprinted, but I was thinking, oh, I'm not supposed to be. It's like sprinting's okay. I wish we had an altimeter of some kind, so we could actually tell if we were still going up. Now I'm seeing a planet there. I wasn't seeing the planet down there at all. Well, the moon. All right, let's use our very approximate guide for level. So that's a bit higher. But that looks high still up there, so let's go that way. But we're close to that peak now. I understand the sentiment. I've got no reason to stop playing this game. But I wouldn't necessarily not play Light No Fire. But Light No Fire is not my ideal game. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when it comes out. I'm not massively into fantasy games. And I'm not massively into fantasy in general. That's higher still over there. So yeah, I'm not sure how much Light No Fire, but it'll be new shiny thing, so it will obviously, and I'll stream it because it'll be stupid not to. Because there'll be just so much to discover and find out, and that will be the interesting part for me, is that initial discovery and discovering how the game works and how it differs from this game and things like that. And we'll have a better idea of how it differs from this game by doing things like this, actually going to giant planets and seeing what the terrain generation is like. So that we can counter that argument, for instance, oh, it's nothing like it, it's completely different, if it turns out to be quite similar. It does start to feel like we're on top of the world here, even though it's not. I'm a steep mountain. The ship's now 12 minutes, 21 seconds away. And I think we're almost as high as we can get in this area. So just that peak over there. Nice double rainbows come out for us. For the photo opportunity at the top. Maybe that one might be similar or the same, but feels slightly higher. Got a better view at least, which means it probably is. And that planet's come into view more now. It's a high one there. Where was the one on the horizon? There. See, from here, it doesn't even feel like we've just climbed a mountain because it's relatively plateau-like at the top here. Where am I? Try and get myself in the picture. Bottom right indicates kind of a lostness. It's quite featureless. There's not much to look at, but it's interesting. All right, I'm not going to go all the way. Actually, I will make a little bit of an effort to go back. But we'll go faster, and we'll see how far it feels. Just using our jetpack to get back. Until I'm in a mature normal save. Don't really care if I'm hitting the ground hard. It definitely feels a long way away. Sometimes the caves have got different terrain as well. I might demonstrate that. I've got a planet. No, this isn't quite so different. This is a little bit different, but it's not quite as different as one I've got. Like I show in a bit. I feel like that's a bit of a mental trap to even thinking those terms, that what will it have to compete with this game, for instance. It's going to be a different game. It's not going to be the same. And how it's different, we can't predict at all. We have no idea. For instance, let's take one look at something that's not very good in No Man's Sky. The inventory system. From a game design point of view in 2025, this inventory system is rubbish. We're used to it. We know its quirks. This part, for instance, if you've got a freighter in the system and you're scrolling the top part, and then all of a sudden you can see all of your... That's terrible design. There's so much they could improve. But they're not going to do that in this game. They're just going to give us like little quality of life upgrades like these things here. But they're not going to change it massively. Whereas Light No Fire will almost certainly have a completely different inventory system, because it's a fantasy game, and fantasy games have different styles of inventory. They have a different approach to inventory. It's not the same. So this inventory kind of suits this game. It's simple. It's multi-purpose. It wouldn't suit a fantasy game at all. And then there's a complete lack of cartography in No Man's Sky. I'm not quite sure how you have a fantasy game that doesn't involve cartography in some way or other. And there's a good possibility it won't, because of the procedural generation system. After all, they can't have a detailed world map because they won't have explored it yet. They'll have looked around it. They'll have flown around it with their kind of God mode rendering system, where they can just go from one planet to another without jumping in a ship, just by going into camera mode style. So they'll have looked around, but they won't have been able to explore everything, even using that. And yes, they could go up nice and high, but it wouldn't necessarily render in the details we'd need for a map. So there will be the vaguest of world maps, if there is one. But cartography is so key. Every fantasy game since Lord of the Rings has really focused on its map. It's one of its things. It's one of those genre expectations almost. I don't think we'll see anything that different on this planet, because it's an exotic planet. So it's probably just going to stay quite smooth. Even though obviously its idea of smooth is very different to normal planets. But we'll just give it a couple of opportunities. We'll go to a couple of different spots because these planets are huge after all. So you never know. They might have different geography elsewhere. I have seen it on normal purple planets. Again, idea of scale is so tricky. We're obviously still quite a long way away because we're only seeing that pattern. So, I mean, imagine this planet. This planet is very, very large compared to most computer games. I would say the only planets I can think that would be slightly bigger might be a couple of the almost handcrafted planets in Star Citizen. And it's approaching those sizes. But in Star Citizen, you could make a map because you know where everything is. Someone could say, here's the map of, I can't even remember the names of the planets. Shows you how much I pay attention to that. But here you couldn't without exploring it thoroughly. And yes, it's relatively featureless, so it wouldn't make a lot of sense to map it. But if you wanted to say map where some of the points of interest were, I mean, that would be a monumental task that would take hundreds of people. Yeah, it's not going to be different terrain. Let's go and find something else. Maybe we'll quickly look at a moon while we're here. Just pick one of them. Am I in HUDless? No, I'm not. I could see one element on my HUD, but I couldn't see anything else. So these suddenly feel tiny in comparison. Obviously, moons are the smallest planets in the game. Can't really see much here. What with the dark and the where's the sun going to be? Actually, it's probably behind the planet. No, it isn't. It's there. That's probably the North Pole there. Have a good one, Ignition. I might need another coffee one of those mornings. I woke up and the first thing I did was start reading a book, and I read that whole book and then realized it was nearly time to stream. So I was a bit, oh my god, what time is it? I mean, it was in a completely different world. It's difficult to see. This planet looks very boring. Very uninspiring. Not all of them are gems, after all. I was reading a book can't remember what it's called now. I was reading a book on the is it SR-71 Blackbird? The designation is always, I think it's SR-71, isn't it? I'll tell you the name in a minute. Much recommended, but apparently very hard to come across. I was reading a PDF of it. Where's my reader? There. I was reading a book called Sled Driver by Brian Schule, who was a pilot on that particular plane. It's like it's a little bit of a love story of his experiences flying the fastest plane in the world. Right, nothing much to look at on that planet. I'm not going to go to all the moons because I want to go to another giant. So let's continue roughly away from where we were. So we were here. And I'm over there. So if anybody did want to kind of go to some of these planets, they can kind of roughly follow the route. Is that one? That's a gas giant. Again, I'm looking for gas giant-like animations around the planet, but where it doesn't say gas giant. And obviously we're looking for X and Y star systems because you can't always see the color very clearly. I'm aware we've gone down a bit, so let's go up a bit. I've also come a long way out of my jump range for this ship. But I can always use my freighter. Let's turn back towards where we were. Can we even see the lines? No, we're slightly out of navigation range. Just go back normally. Right, so following this line approximately, let's go up slightly. That's a gas giant. I can see another purple system now. There's one. So they're not that common. You can find them, but within, say, the reach of this fighter, it's more challenging. And this is why I feel like I haven't fully explored them yet, because there aren't that many of them. And I haven't spent a lot of time doing it. No Man's Sky has this annoying habit of bringing out lots of updates we need to explore and look at. How could they? Not very much luck here. That's a gas giant. That's another gas giant. And now we're on the edge. So we were over there. We're now on the edge. Let's come out a bit, head towards there. So they do feel like most of the purple systems are on the edge of voids. So we've got a void here with not many stars in it. And the purples do seem to cluster around the voids. I guess that's one way of making sure they had space for them. It makes me wonder if some of these other systems that they've added, supposedly added, are also these systems that are projecting into the voids a little bit, like this one, for instance. Might have to look into that at some point. Another for science experiment. I just have too many of those. I've lost my sense of direction now, so I could be looking at the same planets. Where's the... There it is. We were going over there somewhere. See, in the middle of this cluster, they're mostly the same colours, but there is the odd one. But again, there's a little bit of a void here, so it's not really a cluster. And then a load of normal systems. And then one on the edge. Where's the core again? There. So we got back into sight of the lines we had. Still out of navigation. Whoops. Let's get the other one. That's it. There, that's one. But I can't get to it, so let's mark it. Now, why isn't it letting me see the custom waypoint line? Really lets us down sometimes. Okay, so it's going to be in this direction somewhere. There it is. The light, if it's just slightly too far away, you don't get a line to it. Someone said they'd moved these. They haven't moved them. It's just random. Depends on your freighter. Whoa, that looks very odd. What's going on here? Is that just rendered weirdly, or is that... It's an empty. So it's the textures for empty look a bit weird from a distance. It hasn't got any clouds, of course. Ooh, it's interesting. If you notice, it doesn't say entering atmosphere anymore. It says entering suborbital on these. I think it's a specific giants thing, but it no longer says entering atmosphere for empty planets in general. Looks pretty flat and featureless, which it did from a distance, let's face it. Let's see what the gravity feels like. Because the gravity shouldn't be the same as an ordinary empty. No, it's definitely not the same. It was slightly different. But we're falling quicker. It's not. That doesn't feel like an empty planet. It's just slightly. Well, I'm certainly going a long way. It just feels like a slightly steeper curve to my trajectory. Still got loads of jetpack though, so we can go long distance without touching the ground. Oh, just touched it then. Geothermal event detected. Should be a geyser somewhere. Let's have a look. Is that it? Did I just miss it? Oh, here we are. Nope. Oh no, it did. It did in the end. Are they hot? Yes. Whoa. That wasn't nice. It threw me out. Interesting. Yeah, it doesn't look that different. A giant planet, again, almost featureless. No real ups and downs. Can never resist these. Means I don't have to go back to my navigation data base as often. There's a bit of a rise here, but I don't think it's that high. What kind of range have I got? It's doing that thing where it doesn't tell you. $1,500. That's not too bad. Probably more than my freighter. I mean, my fighter was. It's different and it's nice, but there's not much to look at, really. Probably the most boring planet you could possibly find. So we were over there. We're now going towards the core. Well, it's definitely an interesting planet to come across, but in terms of looking at what I'm doing here today, looking at planetary features, it has a distinct lack of them. So kind of gets in the way of my purpose today. As well. Yeah, extreme storms, heat planets can be nice for just getting around. So what's this one? This one looks like it's got some water. It's redacted, so it's possibly going to be... It's possibly going to have some different color filters. So it's a giant... what do we used to call them? Type of exotic, aren't they? I can't think what I usually call them. So the water is not really a large area, it's more pools. My phone went a cropper then. So this didn't look like it had an awful lot, had many patches of water. But of course, scale is huge, so when we get to it, it's a huge patch of water. It's not very steep, but I don't think you do get deep water on giant planets. I've yet to see a deep ocean planet, the giant ocean planet, so I don't know how deep they go. I suspect they don't go that deep. We're looking back on it. Yeah, there's a big-ish blue, but the trouble is we can't rely on the way it looks from a distance necessarily. Let's go over here where there's no blue. There's a strange transition when you get to the clouds on giant planets. You're looking at the ground, then all of a sudden clouds pop in. Yes, it's a little bit like slowly rising and falling planet we were on earlier, but it has some water if we look for it. Which makes me wonder if it has some higher regions. I can see a higher space over there. No, I don't think there was a... Was there a red filter? You mean on this planet? Let's have a look. We'll actually land and see what the filter looks like. I don't think it's necessarily going to be a mega exotic. That's the words I was looking for. I don't think it's necessarily going to be the kind of mega exotic that has monochromatic. I think it might have a distance filter on it. Whoa, it really pops in hard. Feels like you just crashed into something. Hi, John, by the way. I've noticed it's harder and harder to access this. If this one's operated and it just seems this one takes precedence a lot. Now it's okay. Now they both seem to be there, but it takes a while to get to that one sometimes. It's got that slightly rugged terrain. Which again is more of a purple terrain. It's kind of crinkly up and down. And it's definitely got a red filter. It's not a harsh one, but it's definitely there. It's possibly because of the colour of the ground, I guess. It doesn't feel harsh. If this was a darker, or say if it was green, you wouldn't be picking up anything. It would be dark ground. Yeah, it does feel different terrain-wise. Especially when you actually put your feet on the ground. Yeah, very craggy and much more abrupt changes in altitude than we saw on the other planet. With this planet, as we were saying earlier about being able to climb it without jetpack, this would be a pain because you'd have to pick your way around these little paths. I don't even think I can get up there. Get a bit of momentum. Nope. So you'd have to keep trying to find ways to go up slightly higher. And you wouldn't always achieve it. Can't quite get onto that ledge, for instance. Without my jetpack, I am a bit stuck. Yes, just got onto it. And I'm never going to get onto that one. I could have gone the other way, I guess. But we'll go back to the water, but then I was flying and it wasn't quite as obvious when I was in the ship. Am I going to even be able to call in my ship in a spot like this? Might be able to down there. Yeah. Weird reaction to the ground there. I guess it's because of the filter. It makes it look like it's setting fire to the ground. Oh, there's the water. There are a few patches of water. It's just they're well spaced out. Yeah, it looks like a red filter on my Corvette here. Definitely. And this doesn't look very deep. But again, we have that cragginess. Water's quite clear here, though. Quite nice. Been seeing a lot of very murky water recently, so it's quite nice to be able to see where I'm going. Get to about 50, 55 maybe. So it's not as shallow as it might appear. I mean, it's not... Oh, I like these. Right, which direction's my ship? Over there. Yeah, I mean, I didn't remember the filter either, but I wasn't looking for it until we got over land, I guess. So yeah, it's different. It's not the same kind of terrain. And it has some quite wide open blue areas that don't look that big from space, but are actually quite impressively big when you get down there. Of course, that's one of the hints we got from Voyagers, is that the oceans will be huge, supposedly. Of course, that doesn't tell us an awful lot. There's one. This one's watery as well. Ultramarine, so it's yet again a mega exotic. A little bit more rainy here. Interested to see what those waves are like. Choppy, but it's not that deep. So we're not seeing huge waves. Similar depths, at least in this part of the planet.
Weather update. Storm clear.
Out. This feels much more. I've replaced my headphone wire. It feels much more immediate when I'm my Bluetooth headphones are pretty good, but they're not as good as a decent pair of wired monitors. And all of a sudden, I feel much more immersed in the game. Places like that, it's suddenly quite overwhelming when you hit the storm and the water. Is that water here too? No. Oh no, there might. Yes, there is. So this one looks like it's got quite a bit of water. So I picked an area that didn't look like it was that watery. Do that there, for instance. Looks like it's mostly land. Or maybe that might be water. Let's get a bit more light on the... That doesn't help. Yeah, it's watery everywhere, I think. But of course, the scale is a bit deceiving, because we're so used to seeing the planet smaller. Let's put boots on the ground here. This has got a bit of a greenish kind of peachy colour. Distance filter, but close up it isn't. Wonder if we'll see weird regions of filters in Light No Fire. Or whether that's just something that No Man's Sky will use for making things feel a bit more alien. And they won't carry it across. Yeah, the only thing that feels different here is the kind of scale of all the distant mega exotic flora. A scale of quantity as opposed to size. But I have landed on normal planets in the past that have just been absolutely crammed, packed with these kind of mega exotic flora. So much so that I could hardly navigate my way around on foot. Nice triceratops. No, just a horned, not a triceratops. He's nice and big though. Yeah, quite a nice planet. Doesn't feel that different. Maybe a little bit different in the way the terrain flows. It's interesting the way these filters change the look of that. I suspect, in general, the giant planets will, to some extent, kind of iron out some of the variations we see in purple planets. Let's go to an ordinary purple planet system. That'll do. Try and pop this because I'm not in the fastest of ships. I wasn't sure the other day if you could still pop these with a Corvette, but I was able to. I had to fly right into the entrance there. There you go, it's gone. Encounter gone. It's grassy, but it's got a lot of water, so there might not be much to look at there. That's a moon. That's a moon. That's a water planet by the look of it. At least this will give us an idea of just general landscape. If it's different, of course. So what you sometimes see on purple planets is these kind of areas where there's higher ground and then no lower ground, but you can't always tell because of the way it renders whether you're going to spot that kind of thing, unless they're really high. We come here and turn round. Yeah, it's not that high lying really. Again, if I was on the ground I might notice the difference more. It's not going to be as marked as the giant we were on earlier. At least it stopped raining there. Let's have a look. So that's the kind of feature. I mean, we're on a relatively flat area, but with some higher areas on the landscape, which you don't see in normal systems. It's a little bit like a mountain chain, but not that mountainous in this case. I do feel like they've reduced the rendering distance. They did reduce it quite a bit, I think, by mistake with the after the Switch release. But even then, it feels like the rendering distance is a little bit low. For grass, for instance, feels like it's a little bit lower than it used to be. It's unusual. Just we've got flat land that way, or relatively flat land. Then we've got these almost Sugarloaf Mountain styles. And there's these kinds of changes of landscape that we would have to see in larger planets, because it wouldn't make any sense for it to have consistent terrain in huge swathes of land, especially if they are putting in some form of river, which I don't know how they're going to do if they are, but you seem to have seen streams and rivers in the trailer. Not big ones, but so obviously it didn't take me ages and ages to get to the top of this one because it was relatively easy terrain. I probably could have ran it. But we are pretty high, and most of the terrain isn't that high. We can see another few mountainous areas over there. Let's call my fighter in again. This isn't a giant planet, remember? So this very much feels like higher, almost mountainous planet. But then this doesn't. This just feels like low rolling terrain. And then earlier we were in relatively flat terrain, possibly like this. So there's a bit of variety in here. I wonder if the giant planets smooth that out a little bit. Seeing the best of the landscape with this weather, though. I have heard about Emily and Loop 16 stuff. I don't think it applies much to the game anymore. My thoughts, I've discussed this before on streams, my thoughts on the original ARG are that it was very much a marketing company producing some what were then very in vogue game experiences ARG game experiences. That's a tautology, ARG game. So I don't really think that the lore can be really overextended into the game. I think you can... I don't think anything contradicts it. I don't think the remembrance lore nods to it, but I don't think we will ever see anything that really harks back to it in a serious lore way again, because I don't feel like it was a core part of the lore. I don't think it necessarily applies to, for instance, how the Atlas was created. I think it's just a version in one universe of how the Atlas could be described. We've got snaky bits, if that makes sense. That's how I think of it anyway. I know others do. Whenever something new lore-wise comes out, people do have a tendency to start digging up that as unexplored lore and looking for links, looking for how it could be brought back into the game. But my hunch is they never will. And I don't think that is the... I have a very different perspective on what the Atlas story says. And I don't think that it is entirely consistent with the ARG. But yeah, I've got nothing against it. I mean, if people really enjoy... I wasn't part of it. I wasn't playing No Man's Sky at the time. So all of the references that I was reading up while it was going on and watching people's YouTube were just mysterious things to me. I'd always followed the game, so I was aware of it. I was following it a little bit, but it all just seemed a bit random to me. Obviously, it was quite random. Like hamster wheels and stuff, and like letters to known multimedia people. But so yeah, I've got nothing against it. I thought I would, if I had really been a part of the game back then, I would have probably thoroughly enjoyed it. So it's not that I'm knocking it in any way. I just don't think that I don't think it's entirely consistent with my view of how No Man's Sky lore works. And I don't think it has to be, but because No Man's Sky lore is deliberately not consistent with itself. I mean, it does... Actually, it's not that I don't think it's canon. I feel like... it's difficult to explain because I think a lot of modern culture is very informed by that kind of way of looking at stories, which is what's canon, what isn't. It's all very... inspired by comic culture. So gaming itself has a lot of comic culture in it. But I don't think that many of the people that write the lore in No Man's Sky necessarily see it that way. I think they were... first and foremost, I think all of the lore in No Man's Sky is just a layer on top of a game that doesn't really have lore. I don't see No Man's Sky as originally being a lore game. I don't think any of that lore was all written after the fact to match what we were seeing in the game, and very often was very much like a postmodern take on how the game works. So our interactions with Atlas are almost interactions with the game developers, or the game itself is talking to us in a way. I don't know how to say these kinds of things without sounding a little bit pretentious. So if we take, for instance, the main story, which is now considered to be the Artemis Path. The Artemis Path is a self-referential story about explorers in No Man's Sky. So it's by default lore, but it's lore written after the fact, and it's incredibly well written as far as I'm concerned. I know some people don't really like the Greg Buchanan stuff and are pleased he's no longer part of it. I really liked it. I don't think Hello Games were ever upset with it. I don't think Hello Games sacked him, which some people seem to think he did. They did. That's another whole story. But it's kind of a layer on top of the game that talks about the game in an interesting way that isn't necessarily the game, if you see what I mean. Oh, well, that took me deep into a cave, but it just left me lying in there. Now this is an unusual topology. Is this a giant planet? Was it just a planet? It's just a planet. It looked like it was going to be a giant because it had 2 moons around a single planet, but it's just the randomness of a standard planet with 2 moons. It's got building fauna on it. So it's probably a mega exotic. And I guess those leaves would suggest that. But it just says high energy, but this is not a normal high energy planet, I don't think. Pulpy roots. Eptiloid wheat. Raspberry. Raspberry. Not seeing any biome specific stuff. My thoughts on Alien Earth. I loved the beginning of it. I really like what they were doing. I still like what they're doing, but they're obviously going to take longer to do it, and so that can feel a little bit disappointing to get there, because it's going to take a while to really develop the story, I think. I don't have as many reservations as some. I don't think that I mean, spoilers for Alien Earth. I don't think the making the alien almost a pet is a problem, because it's clearly an ominous thing that's not going to work out, because that's just what happens with Alien. And I think some people are thinking, oh, it removes the threat, it makes them like dogs. It's like, no, that's not going to work. That's not going to how it's going to end. It's just going to take longer to get there because it's a television series and not a film. But on the other hand, because it's a television series and not a film, and it's going to be slower and it's going to develop its themes slower, it doesn't feel as urgent and immediate as it did to start with. I'm not as in love with it as I was for the first 5 or 6 episodes, if that makes sense. I'm still with it. It's just, it's going to have to do more, but I think it will. I don't know, if I look at the other example of Noah Hawley's work, I haven't actually watched much of Fargo. It didn't resonate with me as much as the movie did, so I didn't actually stay with it. But a lot of people have said that was great, and I can't really judge because I haven't watched it. But I have watched Legion, and I absolutely love it, and I love everything about it. And although there were a couple of, well, maybe one series that was a little bit more challenging, overall I liked everything he was trying to do with that, and the way that he was subverting X-Men and changing how he would, it's like his version of X-Men. Spoilers, right down to having Xavier in it towards the end. So I trust him implicitly and what he will do. I feel like he will go there. He will. He's quite clearly shown he's prepared to go wherever he's going. He's prepared to take the risks, and I love that audacity that he has and brings to this kind of thing. So I don't think he's never going to get to the twist and to the point. I just feel like it's going to take a little bit longer. Yeah, the music is amazing. There's even a playlist out there that I put together of the first series music, because it was just a beautiful piece of work, the choice of music and the way they did it. That first season is just an amazing piece of television. Second season is a really interesting, challenging piece of television, and that's what I'm hoping from Alien Earth. Alien Earth starts off really great, and then it starts to withhold some of its themes and interesting elements. And I'm hoping that he does what he did with Legion and dives into the second season, and it doesn't go where you think it's going to at all. It does something completely different and really kind of turns things around and changes the way you look at the story. That's what I'm hoping will happen. I think it will, because that's how he writes. I think it's an interesting parallel to the way that that Stephen Moffat writes. So, for instance, you look at some of his better two-parter Doctor Who episodes, he has this really clever ability to write one story, and they'll to be continued, and you think, okay, I know where this is going, I know what episode 2 is going to be about, and then he will just totally change the script on you, and it will start off in a different way, and you'll be totally disorientated, and you won't understand what's going on for a bit. This is an interesting planet, isn't it? That's crazy. Didn't look that steep at all. I think there's some people speculate. Oh, this is deeper as well. Some people speculated that they might have withheld some of the thematic elements because they thought, oh, this is too good for a TV series, let's turn it into a movie. I'm hoping that isn't the case. So it's not super deep water, but it is deeper than normal planets. And that's the first time I've seen this on a giant. Yeah, it is a giant, yeah. It's a giant swamp planet. Deep water. I was going to say I've got I can put the lifts on because this one is quite interesting. If I can remember how I usually do that. Come on. Now I've gone into writing. So why is that not coming up? Why? Usually, I probably wasn't hitting Y. Unfortunately, this is Kikolgala, if that's how you pronounce it. But as I said right up at the beginning, well, quite close to the beginning, I went to my butterfly house base and started from there to look for purple planets. So we're in Kikolgala Galaxy, so you can get to it by going to the butterfly base and then using a portal, or the region isn't that far from there. I've just kind of made a bit of a trip in, so I've probably gone about 4 or 5 regions. But where I want to go? I want to go to log, exploration guide. And of course, the region doesn't show until we go into space. Why doesn't it show? I don't know. It's annoying. Why we don't have the region here, I've never understood. Just here would be good. But they are slowly improving things. Like, for instance, we can now see details when we scan a planet in the Discoveries page. So they might put it there one day. Oh, I like the size of that shark. Oh, it's got a nice texture on the top as well. .1. It's not super large. Nice though. Have you played Expedition 33? I don't think I've even heard of it. I don't think so. Oh, I do like these planets where you see the rainfall on the water. We had one earlier, but it was really stormy at the time, so you couldn't really see it very clearly. There's a lot to like about this planet. Worm? Where's the worm? Can't see it. I think it's probably over there somewhere. Trying to locate it on my headphones, but I think it was over there somewhere. Game of the year in what context? Your game of the year, or has won awards for game of the year, or... I really don't keep my, I don't pay much attention to wider gaming, which is a flaw of mine, but I just have too many other interests outside of No Man's Sky that aren't gaming, so it's kind of... sometimes takes a bit of a back seat, the rest of gaming. How do we get back to my ship? I can't call it back in because it doesn't have aquajets, I don't think. So I'm going to have to get up here. I obviously can't call it in anywhere here. I wonder if there's a space here to call in a fighter or something. It's got hippos. I like this planet. Yeah, we can call in a fighter here, at least. Might even be able to call this in. Oh, sorry. Yes, I thought that had a timer on it. I must have changed it at some point. Yeah. No, now I'm going to the wrong page. There we go. Yeah, I did put a timer on it, so I pressed it and forgot, but I obviously wasn't using the right button. It's very atmospheric planet. Yeah, I was just going through a huge cave system that was like one of those ones that goes up the side of a mountain trying to get back to my ship. So I had to tunnel out to get back out so I could call in my ship. And I had to call my ship in at the first available plateau, which weren't many of them on this very steep sided hill mountain thing. So this does demonstrate that we do see kind of changes in terrain that aren't too smoothed out in giant planets. Because we've got a very high area here, which is very close to the clouds. And then a sharp drop off to the sea, which is deep. Wonder if there's another place on the planet where we have deeper water. Is it an indie game? I mean, I might have heard of the name, but I don't know if I know anything about it. So that's as good as not really knowing anything, not really having heard of it. I really wish that hatch would just automatically shut when we take off. Well, I have to say, turn-based combat isn't my favourite style of game. So this is different terrain again. Well, I definitely approve of small studios shaking things up. I think that's where all of the interesting stuff that's going on these days is happening. You have things like Dave the Diver and Balatro and I mean uncountable other games. That's one of the reasons I like this game, is because it's an indie studio throwing together something that they like the look of as opposed to something they think will sell. This is a very different planet, isn't it? Look at that. I've kind of stopped in a place where there's an annoying... This game has changed so much, hasn't it? I don't play No Man's Sky exclusively. I stream it exclusively. But I don't play many games. In the last year, I've played 3 games. I've played Tower of Agaspa, this, and Balatro. have been looking around for something new to play. But it's not incorrect to say I'm a bit of a No Man's Sky purist, because there's not a game like this as far as I'm concerned. And I don't think Light No Fire will be like this. But I do feel like this kind of exercise of just looking at different kinds of giant planets kind of just gives us a little bit of an insight into the kind of terrain system that Sean was obviously working on. It feels like Sean's the terrain guy, and he was working on a terrain system for huge planets and then ported it to large planets, and that's what we have here. So this is just an insight, a little kind of hint of what Light No Fire's terrain might look like. The variation and the style. This feels almost exactly like where I took off from. So this, again, it's kind of homogeneous, but it's not normal. It's not your average planet. Can't find a wider open area of... Trouble with the way the rendering on these larger planets works is you look across to see, oh, that must be water over there. And when you go there, it's not. It's got a bit of land there. Let's try here. All of a sudden a bit of land crops up. I mean, I'm not against turn-based games in general. I just haven't really played one for so long. I think the last recognised turn-based game I would have played would have been an old text-based game like the original Larn and Moria, and I've dabbled but just never found them interesting. Except for the originals. And that's not because I'm a purist, that's because I'm old. I remember when the only game we could play was Larn and Moria on the university's servers. Yeah, it doesn't look like it goes much deeper than this. I think it's probably about 300 it topped out at. Or bottomed out at. You also have a lot of perspective and the history of gaming when you're a bit older, which means you're less impressed by newer things because you're like, oh, it's a bit like that. You remember all those times your parents said, oh, this is just like the Beatles, and you weren't impressed with them saying that either. And then later on, when you're older and you have actually listened to all of the Beatles, and then you realise how much was inspired by that stuff. You like have to grudgingly admit that quite a lot of that stuff you liked was a bit like the Beatles or David Bowie or whoever. No, but I have destroyed my hardware in other ways. Like I had this, as I mentioned before, I killed this computer. I killed the motherboard trying to upgrade it in a very basic way that really shouldn't have killed the motherboard. So that's going to be a water moon. There we go. Yeah. Let's see. This is again with this newer terrain system. You don't get a good feel for what the planet's going to be like from a distance. Because it looked really watery, and now it's got little pools of water that disappear as we get towards them. I've not actually found any water yet. I've just seen water nearby, and then it doesn't turn out to be water. I think they know Ignition. I think they get our sense of humour. Is there any water here? It looked like it was an ocean moon from back there. I'm going to have to dig for it. There was a giant I was on the other day, but I did get some footage of because I wanted to capture some footage for a video I'm going to make, where there was a crashed freighter on terrain that was like really undulating, and the only way I could get to it on foot was to travel through a cave system. It was quite interesting and different. Another point of interest there. How many points of interest are there in this small area? I guess it's a moon, so things get clustered. What was I going to do? I was going to see if I could dig for water. There's not much of it. There's a tiny amount of water deep under the ground. I don't think there's going to be any low enough lying landscape for that. Is there an underwater creature? No, there isn't. Yeah, but I really seriously killed this computer. It was a relatively new computer, and it wasn't. I didn't build it myself. I had it pre-made for me, and I wish I'd built it myself in the end. It can't be deep enough, surely. Maybe they are. Yeah, and all I did was put a standard solid state drive in it. I didn't even use. It wasn't even a anything special. It was just like a bit of backup space. So it was just an ordinary kind of plug-in thing, and I was doing it in a hurry because I wanted to watch some football that was on. And I made one mistake, which was to not unplug from the power. But it's a hot switchable device, so it shouldn't matter. But it killed my motherboard. And I knew immediately. And I did like a couple of weeks of diagnosis to make sure it was that. But I knew immediately it was. It was an expensive mistake. How long are we going? 2.5 hours. I'll probably get a couple more in before I finish up. Let's follow the path from here. See, again, they're all in the void areas. Just encroaching into them. It's definitely a pattern. No, I'm not in my fighter, am I? Actually, let's go to a gas giant for contrast. I want to set a waypoint. That's a PepsiCo. It had a very similar name to PepsiCo. Still feel like the hatch is not doing its job. Look, it's not sharp. Come on, Ellie Games, get that sorted out. Right, So it was following the galactic core path, and then it somewhere around this void. There it is. Pepisoso. Pepisoso. I think I'm talking of toxicity in gaming. I think some toxicity can wind me up, and most of it goes out. I just don't care. But I just find it so strange. For instance, the people that can't let go that the way they see it, this game, it was all a lie. That it was never what they wanted it to be. And I'm not gonna tribally tell you what football team I support. That would be too much. That really would be opening up to possible toxicity in discussion. Football is one of the most toxic of discursive areas. Oh, that's very vivid, isn't it? It's almost as disputed as American politics, and won't go there either. Actually, possibly more so. Premier League football is probably one of the most controversial topics on the planet. So, gas giant. I find they're less likely to have unusual terrain. I mean, they have a different terrain to normal planets, but they seem less likely to do that thing we've just been watching, where you see some planets are very, very flat and then high, or other things like that. They do have this rolling terrain that you have to climb and climb and climb. And the weather effects are very vivid, and whenever you try and fish on them, whoa, this happens. I'll go back to my Corvette now. Yeah, Chelsea aren't doing great at the moment. But didn't they win yesterday? I think so. Or am I imagining it? My dad was always a Chelsea supporter. Oh, that wasn't the button I wanted. I wanted the... Yeah, so I don't think there's an awful lot to explore on most of the actual gas giants, but for a bit of variation and contrast in what we're looking at, I feel like they have that undulation, but they don't seem to have a great variety. Some of them I have seen have got slightly varied terrain, but not as much, it seems. I've been on more of them, I guess. It's the purples. There they are. Definitely seeing more gas giants than other giants. So it does make the giants relatively rare, I think. I mean, it's not that I'm not finding them, so they're not like super rare. But if you consider there seems to be giants of most types of planets, if you were looking for one particular type of giant, it could take you quite a while. Just out of range there. No, I don't. I quite like first-person shooters. I'm out of practice with first-person shooters. I very nearly got into what's it called? It's out of context. Returnal. It just struck me as an interesting concept for a game, but I never actually. For a long while, it wasn't available on PC, so I wasn't able to play it anyway. And by the time it came to Steam, I wasn't as bothered. But I might go and have a look at it one day. I used to love the old Doom games. Like original Doom, and I used to play lots of modded versions of the original Doom. And I kind of followed it through to around about Doom 3, which, although it was more of a multiplayer combat game. I enjoyed the fake multiplayer single player element that it was, playing against a bot. I found that fascinating, playing against a bot at different levels on multiplayer maps. But multiplayer itself was just full of all of the craziness you see in multiplayer games of that type, like capture the flag style games. Just wasn't interested at all. It was just a mess of people all using whatever the meta was at that moment. Like jumping around, never actually running, rocket jumping everywhere. It's just like, this isn't a game, this is just people being crazy. So again, we've got some changes of terrain height here, but not quite as pronounced as some of the places we've been. Almost got Returnal over No... Yeah, that would have been a bad choice. Returnal over No Man's Sky wouldn't have been a good... It's not going to have the longevity, is it? I really... When expeditions came along, and people were saying, oh, what kind of expeditions could we have? I wanted to see a huge freighter, just like, because the way that freighters are generated, you could theoretically make a massive maze freighter and just not set the entire expedition on a planet at all, and use a Returnal like mechanism. So just basically build Returnal in No Man's Sky in a derelict. And they actually did kind of do an element of that in the that time loop one. It wasn't on a freighter, obviously, but they did kind of go there a bit. With the whole death loop thing. No, I never actually got into Duke Nukem. The only reason is because I didn't have it. Back then I would have only bought a certain number of games, and I didn't have it. I didn't buy it. They're also flat. Is this the second place where they just seem to have different versions of the flower ground creatures? Two rare ground. I bet they're both flower cats. Yeah, that's another one I nearly bought back in the day, but I didn't have a decent PC back then, and it was really heavily slated for being unoptimized at the time. And obviously they did fix that in the end. It's now known as one of the best scaling optimization games out there. But the moment passed, because by the time I got a decent PC, it didn't really infuse me. But it is an interesting looking game. That's also a cat. So it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, just like the other planet. I'm not saving any of these discoveries, by the way. I'm going to reset my save after this, I think. So if anybody wants to come and look at these things, they won't have been uploaded. I think I did upload some cats on one of the planets, but I think that was before I came to this galaxy. So it was before it was like retraceable steps. Well, yeah, I would be able to play with ray tracing on, so it would be interesting. Do you feel like there was some unrealistic expectations for that game as well? Like people were complaining about things like, oh, look, in the distance you can see the cars spawning in. It's like, it's not reality, you know. They're not real cars. It's also interesting that Hello Games are moving into game publishing, even if it's only for a couple of games. Well, at the moment we only have one other studio's games that they're going to publish, but it's a very interesting move because it could mean that some of the other games out there that are kind of got a kinship with Hello Games could end up going to them to publish these more challenging, difficult to sell small studio games, or difficult to get published in a wider format. That could be very interesting development if they can do that. It's a very different skill set to what they're used to, so it'd be interesting to see how they do it. But they have published their own games now. They published this, they published what's it called? Last Campfire. I'm pretty sure they still nowadays publish Joe Danger themselves. Right, one more. We've hardly moved from that edge. Look, we've gone quite a way from where we started. That's probably just a single planet with a single moon, which is pretty unusual, but not what we're looking for. Nope. We're out of range there. Not there one. Skirt this void. There must be some more here. Yes. Can't see that at all. It's better. Oh, missed it. Yeah, I think it's more than talking about the kinship, as it were, with No Man's Sky and Cyberpunk. I feel like it was another one of those games that had huge expectation. People kind of projected onto it that it was not even. People project, that looks so different color, but that is the same. No, it isn't. No, I was looking at the light year. Yeah, people projected onto it kind of the ideal cyberpunk game, I think, and it could never live up to that. So by the time the later additions and the tidy ups happened, I think people knew what it was and didn't have unrealistic expectations anymore. I worry with cyberpunk that my interest in it is more about its technical achievement than its actual setting or game style or whatever. I mean, I did read all the old cyberpunk books when they came out. I do appreciate the genre. I don't feel like cyberpunk quite gets the genre, to be honest, from my reading of how the game works. But then games aren't always the best representation of genre anyway, so I see a lot of people in this kind of space in gaming playing the Dune game, and I just don't understand why it's even interesting. And I'm a huge fan of Dune. I don't get what the game's trying to do. If anybody's played it that thinks it's really definitely worth it, I'd be interested to hear what they say. But I don't quite get it. Not finding one here, am I? Is that one? Yeah, that's one. Is this Dune Ignition? Thing is, I am very picky about my Dune adaptations in general. That's a very large piece of water for a planet that doesn't have water everywhere. And I've deliberately avoided the watching other people play it as well. I have watched some of the pre-release videos from the developers. This is a huge inland sea, considering this isn't a planet with large areas of water across the whole planet. But I've heard that it has a PvP element, and I don't quite get that either. Is that something that you have to engage with, or do you? Is it particularly competitive? I mean, is it like the type of thing where you would build a lovely base and then get raided, as an example? Looks like we found yet another. Filter. Oh, it's got a filter because it's dissonant. I didn't spot that. It's got the invisible striders on it. So this is a really classic example of the kind of terrain where I'm talking about having rolling terrain but very high. In that up there is much, much higher than we are, but we're mostly down here in rolling terrain. Yeah, that's the kind of thing I'm hearing, Wolfheart, that it doesn't really go very far. But then it is... One of the things that I worry about with those kind of games is that they will turn into kind of season pass style games where you get lots of new content, but you have to pay for it. And that can soon add up with some of these season pass games are just obnoxiously money grabbing. That's the kind of thing you can only judge once you're kind of embedded in it. Whether it's worth it or not. Right, I'm going to run up this mountain without using a jetpack and see how long it takes, like we did on the other one, because this one looks steeper. Yes, No Man's Sky has spoiled us in one respect, but for those of us that are old enough where we could just buy games and play them for very long periods of time because they didn't have like dead-end game loops, I would say it's just a throwback to old-fashioned gaming. And in that respect, the gaming industry itself spoilt itself. And yes, if you want lots and lots of really good quality content, then yes, you probably do have to pay for it. But season passes don't seem the way to me. That feels like quite a cynical model of paying for extra content. And the other problem is that games like that can suddenly change direction. So you can start off with a very maybe explorative type game, And then the more you get into it and the more the game develops, the more combat focused it becomes, as an example. And then you're kind of stuck in a game that you've been paying for, but is so totally changed that it's no longer your game. I mean, I know at least one person that thinks about No Man's Sky in that way. That they feel like it got too combat-y and too focused on things they weren't interested in. Can I even get up here? I'm going to go to that shoulder rather than head that way, because it doesn't look like... that looks too steep to climb, but maybe if I head to this shoulder, it'll be a little bit less steep. But then another way of looking at it is that we were kind of making our own entertainment with these games. For instance, as I said, I used to really like playing the original Doom games. But one of the reasons I used to like playing them is because there were loads and loads of mods out there. So you could get a lot of money's worth out of playing amateur mods of the same game, but with very different feel and very different... like the original Alien mod for Doom was brilliant. It was just a completely amateur piece of work. And really, it wasn't anything special, but it was just brilliant because we're playing Alien for the first time on a computer game. And so, yeah, we kind of eked out our money's worth back then. And gave the game a lot more longevity, which is possibly not really fair to compare. I don't think I'm going to get up here, am I? Well, if you think about Alphys, if you think about quite a lot of recent developments in No Man's Sky, there has been a lot of stuff that could be considered more combat-y, more twitchy. For instance, expeditions that like the bug hunt one. That was very twitchy, very alienating for someone who just wants to have the stuff from the expedition but doesn't want to play a combat game. And it wasn't that challenging, but for someone that only really plays at the weekend and doesn't have the time to really min-max a weapon, etc., and doesn't really want to take forever playing an expedition, I can see how that would alienate them. And there have been other examples of when the game got very combat-y. For instance, when Pirates first, the Outlaw Systems first came out, there was clearly a bug, but some people thought it was deliberate, where every single time you went anywhere, you were just attacked by pirates constantly. Yeah, that's an example that seeing this latest expedition as well, there's just extreme sentinels everywhere. What they're missing is you hardly have to touch foot on a planet. And if you do touch foot on a planet, you can get off it quite quickly because you're in a Corvette. But if they're not really fully engaged with the way the game works and the way the game loops have changed with Corvettes, then they may not fully realize just how easy it is to not have to fight sentinels all the time. So it's perceptions more than anything, and perception is reality for some people. I'm going to get up here, am I? I feel like I'm just making enough progress to not give up, but I'm not sure if I'm really climbing. The temptation to hit that rocket is really strong. Is that slightly less steep here? Yes. But can I get onto that bit there? No. Just a bit of progress. If I just wiggle. Yep, that worked. I think I might be getting to my limits here, though, on where I can go to on this mountain. No, I think that's as high as I can get. There's a bit of a wiggle technique you can use to try and get onto the next bit, but there's not a next bit here. Yeah, a lot of people nearly quit with that pirate attack thing happened, but it was a bug. But so many people didn't realize it was a bug. They just thought this was the new way that No Man's Sky was going to work. And then Hello Games did listen to some of the suggestions that maybe not every system should have high conflict, but it took a while for that to calm down as well. It took quite a few weeks for them, I think, to work out what the problem was, because they don't watch my streams, of course, or read what I say in Reddit, or read my bug reports. All right, I'm going to have to go up. I was clearly telling them what was happening, that their pirate counter was operating on all levels. So, for instance, we've got a pirate threat meter on planet, and we've got a pirate threat meter in space, and they were both operating simultaneously. So if you were in space, you were also getting the pirate counter on a planet, and there was no way of stopping one or the other. So you were getting double pirates. So even when they calmed them down a bit, you were still getting double pirates. And I think there was actually a third meter for on the planet. I think there were 2 levels of attack you can have on a planet. So this is quite interesting terrain. It's like a spine of mountain chain. It wasn't long after that they introduced that you can change your settings thing. So that was kind of the end of that, really. If people don't like the combat, they can always turn it off. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about the power of the boltcaster. I've discussed this before. At some point, I really must make my envisaged video of the different ways you can set up a boltcaster, because you can set it up so differently. and it becomes such a different weapon. You could theoretically have 3 different multi-tools with different bolt caster setups, and they would feel like different weapons. Which is what I think I need to do to make the video, I think, is min-max 3 ways of setting up the bolt caster and then demonstrate it. I try and ignore the sentinels when I'm playing to just chill out. I mean, like today's stream is very much how I would play if I was just I know I'd just fire up No Man's Sky for a bit. I would just go exploring and I would just run around planets. I'd do a lot more scanning of fauna than I've been fauna and flora than I would have done today. But apart from that, I do a lot of this kind of chill, relaxing exploration play. And when I come across sentinels, I just run away from them. But then this is a save that I can do that on. I've got reasonable maneuverability. I can sprint quite a long. I'm set up to sprint, so if I just sprint now, my sprint is going down really slowly. Because I've min-max sprinting. Because I do a lot of on-foot exploration. So I still haven't run out of sprint. Look. So I'm going to get all the way to my Corvette before I run out of sprint here. Yeah, I've got all the way to my Corvette without running out of sprint. And that's because what I've done is I focused on sprint distance on these, which is not the normal thing to focus on. So that's got sprint distance, that's got sprint distance, that's got sprint distance, that's got sprint distance. That one's got sprint distance, and that one's got... So all 6 of these have got sprint distance.
Weather warning. Incoming storm.
How many people would know you could even do that? It's only a few of us that really know the game inside out that way. But that make content or discuss things like that on Reddit. Most people don't play it to that extent. Perma, I'm a little bit more balanced, but still, I like sprint as well. But I've only got 2 perma. I've got 3, I suppose, because I'm doing that abandoned run. But I've only really got 2 main perma saves, and one of those was extreme settings, and I never actually got as far as min-maxing anything because my aim was to just get to the middle, get to the center on perma settings with everything set to max. And once I did that, I didn't really continue with that save, but I still got it. And I've got an old perma save. The game was a lot easier, let's face it. The game has got harder over the years. There are better tactics and methods, but there's more that can go wrong and more that can hurt you. I mean, I've shown before in stream that the bolt caster can be just as effective as the as the neutron cannon. The only difference is you don't get that area effect. So if you're fighting something like dissonant sentinels, then you have a slight disadvantage compared to the neutron cannon. Just because you can't shoot 1 and 3 or 4 will get hurt. I could, as I'm finished here, I'll go into my perma save and quickly have a look. Because in my perma save, I really focused on my OP perma. I call it OP perma because it literally is. Unusual for me not to be attacked by sentinels on this planet straight away. I think they might have calmed it a bit. Is this the one? Yeah, this is the one. I've already got it lined up. It does take a lot of ammunition. Not quite sure why I'm not being attacked. This used to be one of the most extreme of extreme planets for sentinels. Not even seeing any. They used to attack me as soon as I loaded into the game. Regular patrols, that's definitely dropped. It must have changed in worlds. Let's see if we can find a more aggressive spot. Actually, I might have some charts on this save. I haven't played this save for so long. This is a lovely ship. I have to go to a different planet anyway, so you might as well. I really like the look of this ship. Just pure white. Hasn't got the blue on the balls, which I didn't want. Nice and compact otherwise. Found it at S-Class. Found it at S-Class in an outlaw system, but it didn't have nerfed stats, which is unusual. Alright, let's have a look in this. Nope. I will have been to these planets, definitely. It's just forgotten I've been there. Can't see any extreme sentinel planets, though. Is that a dissonant planet? No. Yeah, they're running away from me. They heard me as I loaded in, saying, now this is a weapon. Look, I haven't even done the purple systems on this save. Divergent signal, isn't that the no, that is the purpose systems. Let's just shoot the first sentinels we see. We're bound to see some at some point. Nice flowers. What is this? Ever present. You'd have thought we'd see some. Forgot how good these headphones were. They're totally cutting out even my voice. I can hardly hear myself. I don't have voice feedback on my channel, so maybe I should. Aha, there we are. That's not your normal bolt caster. This one's set up for rapid fire.
Warning, Sentinel combat unit deployed.
You just don't even have to think. Point and click. That's the only problem, is you have to keep reloading your ammo. And I might have run out of ammo. No ammo in inventory. So I'm going to have to either actually start picking up the barrels. Oops. You don't get enough though for this gun. So I should have really picked up more ammo before I started, or made some. I might be forced to make some. I'm already ammo low. Let's go and make some ammo. They're still not quite attacking as aggressively as they would do.
Warning, elite Sentinel force.
Now, as I was saying in a recent video, I feel like the reason people don't like combat in this game, where is it? Where is it? Oh, there it is not so much the lack of challenge, it's the lack of strategy. See, I got something damaged then because I'm in perma, but it wasn't something no, something else damaged. I've got to be careful now. Probably not going to hurt me that much. keep changing weapons. What's going on? Now, what I've found is that challenge-wise, this can get quite challenging if you're on a really, really stormy planet while trying to do this at the same time. Because the attritional damage can start to wear you down. That's not strategic. And I think what the people are missing is some level of strategy in their combat.
Warning, sensible walking detected.
But there have been times on distant planets in this save where I've been forced to run away because things were just too tough for me. Got to be a bit careful here. Of that annoying little thing. Shield's nearly depleted, and I haven't even got this guy yet. Whoa. See, I may have taken on a bit more than I could chew without really thinking about it. And I'm a bit wary of running into this save without having played Perma properly for ages. So I might just run away. Where are the... There's no real strategy here. It's just stay out of trouble when you get into trouble. Where is he? I knew we'd come back eventually. You're not so tough now, you haven't got anybody to protect you. Yeah, so you saw some of the disadvantages there. Because if I'd been using a neutron cannon, whenever I was shooting the smaller walker and it was being repaired, I would also have been shooting the things repairing it because I had a wide area effect. But apart from that, I'd say that was slightly more fun than using a neutron cannon. least I had to run around and kind of use a bit of tactics to get some ammunition and stop myself being killed. I haven't got any repair kits right now. See, look, I got hurt. It's a bit more attritional permadeath, as anybody that's ever played permadeath will tell you. But it's not significantly more overheads. That's what I think No Man's Sky lacks as well, not just strategy, overheads. I feel like we need, in these higher settings... Where did I park? Oh, of course, I'm looking for my Corvette. I don't have a Corvette. In these higher settings, if we had more overheads, more things that we had to fix up, more things we had to keep working, things like ammunition were harder, and it might feel a little bit more like you're playing a game. I don't play first person at all. It's not my thing. I would get very motion sick if I played first person. That's everything, isn't it? Nothing on my multi-tool damage. No. That's something you don't see very often. You don't see the multi-tool itself get damaged. Yeah, I mean, this is, as I say, it's an overpowered perma-save. I'm not worried if I'm getting into combat. I'm not worried if I'm losing in combat, because I can run around a bit, heal up a bit, and then come back and shoot. I could have eaten some meat, for instance. On this save, I usually have some meat ready if my health gets a bit low. It's like one of those things in the game, isn't it? It's that you learn when you're really in trouble and really have to scarper. Anyway, so interesting look at some purple systems. Nothing to do with setting up bolt casters, but that is an interesting aside. I do feel like when we get into we should actually look at the if we go back to the original Light No Fire trailer. Make sure it's muted, because that actually is a piece of copyright music. Strange choice for them to use, but there you go. And then we put that on the screen. And maybe zoom that out a little bit. Browser. Let's go here a second. And it's also equally zoomed in, but at least I can see the controls for this. Okay, that's better. So we can just pull it in a bit. That will do for the purposes of this. So as you can see, the terrain there isn't exactly the same as No Man's Sky terrain, but I do feel there's some similarities to what we've been seeing today on some of the purple systems, in that kind of the way it undulates and can get quite high and quite low with more dips in between. Underwater now looks very similar to No Man's Sky, since they added underwater elements. They seem to have packed in assets, which I'm not sure. I'm utterly convinced these are settlements and not buildings. There's so many things about them. I'll go into that in the video I want to make. That kind of mountain behind there looks very familiar now. Like a low, it's a little bit higher, but it's not like takes hours to get up there height, it wouldn't seem. So we'd certainly have difficulty climbing up that kind of mountain without a jetpack in No Man's Sky, like we've seen today. I think the flags they have are a bit like settlement terminals. We'll see. That's just what I suspect. It is only a hunch. So yeah, I think some of that terrain looks more familiar to purple systems, and we know that Sean was talking about changing the terrain, and that Worlds was part of that, bringing the technology back into No Man's Sky. So I do feel like the kind of terrain that's being generated in this game is kind of similar to the purple system, giant planets especially. So I think it's an interesting exercise to just look at them and see how they differ from normal planets and what kind of terrain we might come across. So anyway, I've been Pharaoh. Travel well, and goodbye for now.